Hi, I'm John Paul Caponegro. Over the next few minutes, I want to talk to you about why printing is so important for photographers. Let me jump right in. I'm going to share some information with you. I think it's so important to understand the benefits of living with prints and how making prints brings new life to your images. So let's answer this question like, why make a print? It takes time, money, materials. It's a little bit of an effort to make a print. And if you really want to make a really great one, it might be a little more than a little bit of an effort, but it's worth it. Why? I grew up in a photographic family. My father is one of the finer silver gelatin printers in the medium, in the history of the medium. And so printing to me seemed natural, but I'm not going to give you my dad's answer because we live in a different time. If you ask my dad, he'd say, it's not a photograph until it's printed. And I don't want to do that to you. They're very different kinds of photographs these days. But I do want to celebrate so many of the benefits he showed me and that I've experienced myself when I make prints. Now, let's take a little bit of a look at Dad's work and the way a lot of people used to do it in the 20th century, and still some do today. If you're shooting a negative, you kind of have to make a print in order to see the final image, to make a positive image. And so, yeah, it makes sense that Dad is saying, well, it's not really a photograph. It's not really my finished vision until I make the print. But Dad also knows how important it is. The printing process is where he does the development. So we're doing some of that maybe digitally if we're using digital technology. But there's also the final realization of putting an image to paper, which I want to speak to a little bit more. This is his archive of negatives, and it's going to take a lot of prints to make this archive of prints. But I think it's really kind of fascinating that in order to see all of those images, he makes another kind of print, or he gets somebody to make another kind of print for him, which is in the form of the book. The book often served as, what do you got? Because so few people can actually come and visit his archive. And it's a very different deal pulling out those boxes and looking at large scale prints than it is having a book, holding it in your lap, and flipping through the pages. So I think it's really important to understand we all make very different kinds of prints at different points in our life for different reasons. And I want to celebrate that too. Still, there's something really special about seeing a beautifully crafted fine art print. When somebody really has craft and has made an exquisite image and realized it fully on beautiful materials, it's a kind of a food for the eyes. It's a food for the soul. It's really a wonderful, uplifting experience. And I encourage you to visit galleries, museums, and see what fine art masterworks look like and just what the possibilities of printing are. My Lightroom is very different than his darkroom, right? Often I'm working on my phone. It's a different era. And yet my images are always with me as well. I have a collection of them in my pocket and they go with me all over the world. And I can access my images anywhere in the world, and so can everybody else, because they're up on my website. And tens of thousands of people every year can visit my website, see my images, hear me speak about them, watch the videos that I create, and even enjoy the resources that will help them make their images even better and make better prints. Every image that I've released is up on my website. I can guarantee you every negative that is in Dad's files has now been printed. And it's been known to, recently in 2020, print some negatives that were made in the 50s. We might all revisit our archives that way. What I'm saying is, these are photographs too. So are the images that I share on my social networks, right? And it extends the conversation about my images with my community. It builds community in a very unique way. Quite interesting to see what the differences are between an exhibit, between a book, and between a social network. Different kind of thing. I'm not going to say these aren't photographs because more people have experienced these images than they have my final finished prints. And I'm really gratified when people come into my gallery or when they see an exhibit hung in another gallery or in a museum and they say, wow, I thought your images were beautiful before, but now I see they're even more beautiful. And that kind of experience, well, I wish that for you as well. I think it's useful to get a little context here. The number of photographs we make is just growing exponentially every year. Over a trillion photographs made every single year, and that's likely to double in the next 15. So those little 4x6 prints that we used to have to make in order to see what was on our negatives have waned. Just fewer people making them. We're only making 36 billion of them, only 36 billion of them worldwide. So out of a trillion, 36 billion, well, let's just say a small percentage of the images that we make actually become printed. And that's quite true when you're talking about the hero images that might go into a gallery exhibit or a beautifully crafted portfolio or a handmade artist book. Those are the rare few 1% or less than 1% that really have the best of what you have to offer. Still, it's very interesting to ask, in this day and age, how many people actually own prints? And 89% of Americans own prints. It's quite fascinating. We may have gone digital in so many ways, but we're still making prints. We might be making them differently. Other people might still be making them for us. A few of us are making our own. And I want to talk about one of the benefits you'll get from making your own. So, and again, let's answer this question, why print? Because prints bring new life to your images. And let me talk to you a little bit about the way they bring new life to my images and to those who live with them. And it starts here with me. Now, I fill my house with my images, and I know that the images that are in my dining room, where I spend regular time, at least once or twice a day, I sit with those images. I have this conversation with them, sometimes casually, sometimes I ignore them, sometimes I really look at them carefully. And it builds up over time because I don't just rotate them every day. There's something about the persistence of print, so they're always with you, that's really quite fascinating. And I figure out ways where I might be able to improve a print, or how I can apply the successes of one print and apply it to others, or what image I might make next. And I accumulate those comments that other people make about the images. And very often they've led to breakthrough ideas for me, which has been really helpful. So not only is it your own feedback, it's the other feedback that people who come into your space share. And so I encourage that. I open up my gallery and working studio to a once-a-year event where I fill the walls with new images. I have this deal with myself, new images, and it keeps me productive. And then I invite the public in, and I force myself to say a few things about it, and then have a question and answer session. And it's a really wonderful feedback session for me. I always learn more about my work, even just by getting it ready. There's something about getting your images all dressed up, matted and framed, ready for the party. It's this sign of respect. And then when you step back at the end and the thing is beautifully hung and you've done a great job, there's this sense of accomplishment and a sense of I've given the work that I've done respect. And that carries through because people come into these spaces respectfully. And I have to say, every time I put images up on the wall, it changes the atmosphere. It changes the emotional space that I live in. And I think whatever prints we buy and take into our environment, our homes, where we live, maybe even our workplace, and the things that we make and we hang, whether it's professionally like this or whether it's a work print in the studio, all of those things change the atmosphere that we live in. Downstairs in the studio, where we make the prints and have our workshops, I have many portfolios that are built up over the years. I print out different series, and it gives people access to images. I just don't have enough space on the gallery walls to hang everything that I make. I make far more images in a given year than I can hang on those walls. And so I print, again, some of the finer ones and collect them in a portfolio, which not only can be opened up when people visit, but also I can take these and I can send them out. I can send them out to a prospective client, to a gallerist, to a curator. This is another way of sharing it. And it's a special way of sharing it because all of those people could have just visited my website, but they want to see the physical print. Somehow they connect with it more. It seems like it's the apex or the finest realization of those images, and they love to just get a hold of it. And so I include these gloves. And it's not so much that I'm worried about them having eaten a peanut butter and jelly sandwich before they pick up the print. I don't think they're going to get it dirty or damage the print, but it's more a matter of handle with care. I've put a lot of respect, I've taken a lot of care with my work, and this is just a signal that I have taken that care, and I encourage people to have a similar level of care and respect for something I've spent so much time and put so much into. I even make small portable portfolios, whether I can put it in my backpack or whether I can put it in my back pocket. Because there's one thing to be able to show people what you do on your phone, which I think is great. It's terrific on an airplane. But it's another thing to pull out this small little box and let them flip through small pieces of paper and kind of touch. There's something about the touch of a print where you grab hold of the thing and you connect with it in a very different way. There's something when you grab hold of a frame and you move it across the room or you hang it up on a wall. There's something about touching that increases that sense of connection, as well as, the materials are often beautiful. I often think it's kind of ironic that on the very same printers, in order to promote that show, I make a different kind of print, posters, to put up around the area and promote it regionally. So I love to live with prints. I collect prints from other people. I know many of these photographs have been handed down from me from my father. Uh, I also trade prints with colleagues. And this is wonderful kind of developing community of all the people who have come through my life or are still there, and we're continuing that conversation. These are images that I really loved, and we traded something, and they often have something of mine as well. And that's really gratifying. One of the ones that I share with my alumni when I teach my digital printing workshops is this analog silver gelatin print made by Ansel Adams, one of his most famous images that he gave to my parents on their wedding day, and that my father later handed on to me. And I think it's a wonderful way to start a workshop simply by looking at beautiful images. I like to pull out prints every day from my collection so that people educate their eyes about what prints can be. If these master printers can produce this, then well, maybe we can reach for that too. Um, I think it's so important to experience that for yourself. And again, I encourage you to go out and seek out masterworks and see the originals, the materials. It's a different experience. That said, sometimes those masterworks are on my windowsill. I bought this little square print from Magnum, beautiful little image by Steve McCurry that is finally now framed, but for the better part of a year, it hung out on my windowsill. As the seasons changed, it was there with me the whole time. And it was this wonderful little companion that I just felt so affectionately towards him. And it constantly reminded me of Steve and his work and some of the things that we share in common and both appreciate. So, I called him up one day and I told him that what was there, and he kind of chuckled. It was like very interesting. So prints create that kind of exchange in a way that, websites are different. I also print out a calendar of my work, small little desktop kind of thing. And this calendar often goes to different parts of my friends' houses, people that I'm staying in touch with. And I can tell you the number of times that people have said, keep sending me that calendar. I can't wait for the next calendar. I want to see what you're up to next. It's a beautiful way to stay in touch with folks. Bill Clift, the wonderful photographer out in Santa Fe, New Mexico, shared something with me. He produces these beautiful fine art note cards, or beautifully printed note cards of his fine art photographs. This one is actually of mine. But he said, I love it when people buy one of these notes cards and put it on the refrigerator. I said, tell me why. He says, because they brought it into their life. They're living with it every day. Every time they open that refrigerator door, a little piece of me is with them. Something that they appreciated, something that they wanted enough to live with it. I think that's really, really special. And we can make our own without having to make a large print run. We can make our own cards. We can make our own calendars. We can make our own posters, as well as our own beautifully crafted fine art prints. I put the images that are milestones for me or things that I'm working on in my studio. Like this is a post-up board, a bulletin board that I put up images from a series that I'm working on at the time. And it's a research and development kind of thing. I move things around, I make new prints. I'm thinking about what I want out of these series, what other images I'd be looking for, what's it going to take to complete a project. These work prints are never going to be framed. They're often dinged. Sometimes they're imperfect, but they persist. They're hanging out for the better part of months, years sometimes. They're with me for a long time, and they continue that visual conversation. Maybe no words are said at all, but there's still a visual conversation that's happening. And very often those work prints help me figure out how to put them into a print-on-demand catalog, or I also make a lot of different studies. As a painter, I was trained to make studies before you make the final work, and I saw the benefit of doing work that might be imperfect. You might not think of it as being fully finished, but you understand that you needed to do that work in order to get to the finished work, kind of working out ideas. So this R&D quality of making prints, setting them into your environment, sleeping on them, coming back to them, having a fresh perspective, and then being able to move forward because you hadn't forgotten it. The print reminded you. Prints can be absolutely wonderful. I know that my wife was also a digital photographer. She loves to like print out, kind of old school, but with new digital technology. She likes to print out contact sheets, cut them up, and figure out how she's going to sequence an exhibit, which images are going to go in. And later, very often, she'll go ahead and make an artist book with the actual proofs and or final prints for a very limited run of one or two, maybe 4, 6 books that are hand bound. So the book itself, the printed book, becomes a beautiful object in and of itself. So prints can be many things. And as I'm doing this tour through my life, kind of surveying, as I'm putting myself through the survey, so JP, how do you really use prints? I came to this wall. And of course, these are some of the milestones of my life: my marriage, graduating from high school, my child shortly after they were born. Uh, Remember, these are the kinds of things that, when asked, if your house ever burned down, what would you grab and save if you could only grab a few things? So many people, the vast majority of people, say it's the family portraits that are precious for an entirely different reason, and very, very significant. I finished up my survey. I was looking at my wallet and realized, there are a couple of prints that have been with me to all 7 continents, that have been with me literally next to my heart, because I carry my wallet in my jacket pocket, not in my back pocket. Portraits of my family that are in there. And yes, I have other portraits on my phone, and those ones on the phone are more often the ones that I show other people. There's something about having these close to me and always there, able to retrieve, even when the battery on that device runs out. I don't tend to pull these out for other people, but they're always with me, literally next to my heart. As I was finishing this up, I was realizing, every time I write something, I tend to print it out. So many writers encourage other writers to print the stuff out, because no matter how much you've spell checked it or edited it, there's something about seeing it in printed form that shows you how it could be improved. It's another read, it's another look, it's another view. And so if this happens with very abstract symbols like text, I imagine how much richer that process can be in a fully realized photograph. So I really encourage you to print your images and see how many new lives they'll enjoy and how they'll enrich your life. I always kind of chuckle whenever I hold a landscape like this. I mean, I love the fact that this beautifully realized photograph with so much detail can bring me back in my mind to that place, to that moment in time. And yet, as I grab my print and I hold it, I realize, wow, this is so surreal. I'm holding Death Valley, or I'm holding Antarctica. It's kind of a surreal experience, quite an interesting object in and of itself. And so that sense of suspension of disbelief, but then pushing back and looking at the actual object, that shift in and out can really be quite fascinating and can be quite instructive. So let's talk a little bit quickly about what prints can do for you, because they do a lot for us. You look more carefully. I can't tell you how many times I've watched alumni go through the same things I go through. There are tiny little imperfections that you miss when you're looking at your images on the screen, or there's a different quality of light. Maybe the contrast is slightly different. Maybe the saturation's off a little bit. Maybe you want to shift the hue a little bit. There are just these final touches that you can make as you're making the final print that just bring them to a better sense of life. In that process, we decide to emphasize one thing over another, to choose one material over another. We start to decide what's important to us and how we want our images to look and feel. And it's in testing these through different prints and different media that we come to understand our vision better. I think, choosing how we'd like our images to be received is significant. And how big a print are you going to make? Where are you going to put it? What kind of print is it going to be? It's going to be on somebody's refrigerator. It's going to be on the gallery wall. You can do all of it, but intentionally, we start to get a sense of our motivations and what we get from each of those different experiences. Develop a relationship with our images and with other people through that. But it's that relationship with the images, which is also a relationship with ourselves. And while images don't talk back to us, we can give voice to them. I encourage people time and time again to strike up a conversation with their images. Ask questions, see what comes up for you spontaneously. Live with them. Keep coming back to them. you'll learn a lot by developing that relationship and extending that conversation, and nothing does that better than a print. In short, you connect, and so do other people when they look at your prints. You learn a lot about yourself, and you enrich your visual journey. I also want to talk just a little bit about what prints do for your images. Prints give your images scale. You could make a small, intimate object, or you could make a billboard that overwhelms people. Each of those things is neither better nor worse. It's like, is it appropriate for the statement that you want to make? Is it helping communicate your vision? Is it creating the experience you want, first for yourself and secondarily for your viewers? Scale is really important, and you don't want to be limited by a phone or by a laptop or even by a coffee table book. You want to be able to give the image its full expression. Prints also make images more sensual. There's a vast difference between a shiny, glossy surface as opposed to a fibrous, matte surface. Or you could choose plastic or wood or glass or metal. Each of these materials gives your images a different character, a different quality. And so I think it's so important to do some of that exploration and see what materials really enhance the viewing experience for yourself and for your viewers. So in that respect, so many people, very few people, really see final finished fine art prints. And so to my mind, they become events. When you walk into a gallery that's only open for a month, it's like for a limited time only, you get to come and see these beautiful objects. And then where are you going to find them? There's only so many places that have them, right? So I think in the process of making it is an event, and I think that the process of exhibiting it and sharing with the world is an event. And the thing that I love most about it is you can take a piece of that event home and live with it. That prints persist. Once you hang something up on your wall, unless you move it, it's there with you for a long time. They last probably longer than any of us, right? If they're well produced and nothing disastrous happens, that print's going to be around a really long time. You might even be able to hand that experience on to your heirs or to somebody else who you think will really treasure it, and it will really enrich their lives. So important, because I can't tell you the number of times I walk by a printed environment and it's been there for several months. And I see it out of my peripheral vision, but it catches my eye and something new comes to my mind. I have a different experience of that image. So that persistence is so important. And there's another kind of persistence. The fine art prints are the ones that people tend to collect, tend to go into collections, to know how to conserve things. They're the things that people treasure. These are the things that create your legacy, how people will remember you as a visual artist. So there's a different kind of persistence there. There's persistence, and then there's legacy, and prints do both. Finally, prints can be sold. For many of us, they're another income stream. They help us go out and afford the gear, afford the next trip. But it's also just incredibly gratifying when somebody loves something enough to purchase it and then to bring it into their environment, whether it's a home or a corporate environment like a business office, or in a collection that they're going to be pulling it out and showing at different times when people visit the collection. It's a real compliment. It feels fantastic. There's a sense of validation, and there's a sense of continuance again. This man did so much for printing when he wrote his book about silver printing, and did so much for the printing world in the fine art world. And really kind of a pioneer, both technically and in terms of helping groom a fine art market for photography, which is relatively recent but has really bloomed. I don't think he ever saw $1 million in his life for a single print, but he's close to it right now. And many several contemporary photographers these days are enjoying that kind of thing. And if he hadn't come first, maybe we wouldn't be where we are today. I'm sure we wouldn't be where we are today. So I've got a question for you. Will you remember this presentation? And what if I printed it? Would you remember differently? Because again, prints are different experiences. And what would that look like? Would that be a book? What is that? I'm just circling back around to remind you that, prints are special. Prints do different things. That you live with them differently, and they enrich our lives differently. So they give new life to the image. They give new life to us. Printing is just a different way of experiencing things. And I strongly, encourage you to try printing your images and see how it enhances the experience of your photography. I've got resources to help you do just that. This digital printing quick start guide is up on my website. It's easily found, whether it's on my blog or in the library with all of those resources. It's free. I just want you to go out and be able to start making prints quickly. And this is what will get you started. When you do that, you'll also be signed up for my newsletter, which gives you access to my online library with lots of resources, from what to look for in prints to how to get the look that you want. Lots of things like that. And if you want to go even deeper, you can read those resources on my blog. The What Printing Can Do for You expands this talk that I've just given you, and what printing can do for your images. You'll find more information about that as well. And then if you really want to go deep, come visit me in my studio. My digital printing workshops have kind of been the standard in the industry for almost 25 years, and it's been really gratifying to see people get engaged with printing. I just love it when people come in, they're excited about their images, and then they just light up when they see it printed. It's the first time they made a big print. It's the first time they made a really beautiful print, and they take it home. I know how good that feels, and I love it when other people experience that with their own work as well. So I wish you a wonderful visual journey, and you can find the resources on my website to help you continue that, to help you deepen it, to help you expand that and enrich that. And I want to encourage you to pass it forward as well. This is a community. Share your knowledge. You'll strengthen yourself, and you'll strengthen the community as well. Thank you for joining me. So once again, thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I'm sure there will be others like it. Again, look to the resources on my website for even more information, and stay in touch. But above all, start making some prints of your images. I think you'll absolutely love it. And if you already do it, see if you can take it to the next level and help other people do it as well. Thank you.